Good morning. My name is Sarah Williamson, and I am the Chief Executive Officer of Focusing Capital on the Long Term, or FCLTGlobal. I wish that I were there in person with you in London for the IIRC Council meeting, but that is not to be in the current situation. Instead, please let me share some thoughts with you on the work that we've been doing at FCLTGlobal on the issue of long-term metrics and how they relate to integrated reporting. Today's companies are working hard to better meet the demands of ever more conscious stakeholders and the general public. What they have lacked is a uniform way to share their plans and progress with those stakeholders, including their shareholders, that go beyond traditional accounting measures. Recently, we've seen widespread frustration on how to account for sustainability issues and progress towards the Sustainable Development Goals. This feeling was palpable in Davos, for example, this year, where many conversations revolved around the disconnect between what companies were saying and what their stakeholders were asking for. At FCLTGlobal, where we work with investors and companies to rewire capital markets for sustainable growth for the benefit of savers and communities, we understand both the investors' desire to incorporate non-traditional metrics into their investment decisions and the company's desire to share metrics that matter to their investors. Equity investing today is quantitatively driven, and rather than reading annual reports, meeting with management, and using firsthand experience, most money today is managed by an algorithm, whether we like it or not. Investors and their computers gather information from innumerable sources to compare companies over time and across sectors. Much of this information comes from outside the company itself, but the most important information is that which the company shares. So there is a real need for consistently calculable metrics. Long-term investors recognize that business practices not reflected in standard financial reporting affect their returns significantly over time, and incorporating sustainability principles into investing is increasingly important. There are hundreds of ESG frameworks in use today, and companies release detailed ESG data in sustainability reports, each with its own non-standard format. Even the most sophisticated sustainability reports are hard to incorporate into a systematic investment process, so do not fulfill the need for long-term financial and organizational metrics targeted at quantitative investors. While the various standard setters and regulators come to a consensus, we believe we can advance the conversation with metrics that meet the following criteria. First, they're quantitative in that they're not frameworks, ratings, or judgments, but hard data and raw numbers that investors can incorporate into their own decision-making processes. Second, investor decision relevant in that they are material to long-term investors. Third, consistent in that they can be uniformly defined and consistently calculated. Fourth, widely applicable in that they are pertinent across countries and industry sectors. And fifth, assurable, as we believe that auditor assurance is necessary over time to build credibility and reliance on new metrics. These criteria narrow the list of potential metrics substantially to a common baseline targeted at investors. While we recognize that there are many other critical stakeholders besides investors, having investor-relevant metrics will spur their adoption by companies. And we see such a set of metrics as only a first step or an on-ramp to a broader, deeper set of sustainability metrics and disclosures. However, no metrics are a substitute for the strategic thought process that integrated reporting drives. We know that managing a complex organization goes well beyond managing the financials or even less traditional indicators. Companies have to think through their broad resources, not just financial capital, but human, natural, intellectual, manufactured, and social and relationship capitals. Pursuing an integrated thinking approach to understanding and driving a business over multiple time frames leads to better business decisions. And those companies with strong integrated plans can pivot better when faced with an unexpected event. There's a famous military saying that no battle plan survives contact with the first enemy. And I expect there are very few plans out there that are surviving contact with the current coronavirus crisis. But those that have a well thought through integrated plan will be able to respond better than those who are simply focused on their falling earnings per share. So rather than developing another framework, we'd like to see a continuum of measures for companies to convey their long-term prospects in a way that mainstream investors can incorporate into their decision making. The first step is a simple set of comparable metrics that go beyond traditional financials, which can be incorporated into a mainstream quantitative investment process. The second is a clear strategic plan with the critical KPIs that matter to that company and that industry. And finally, it's a system to track achievement of those KPIs over time so that investors can calibrate the company's plans and executives can build credibility with those engaged investors. Such metrics give investors raw numbers rather than subjective ratings that they can use to inform their investment processes, and clear strategic plans, ideally based on integrated thinking, can give all stakeholders a fuller view of a company's strategy and trajectory. We look forward to collaborating with the IIRC and other initiatives to further define methodologies and to drive adoption of non-traditional measures of long-term value, and hope that this work will make a new and valuable contribution to corporate reporting and investor engagement around the world. Thank you very much.